I knew I wanted to be an engineer. My sister always motivated me. My older sister, she's a civil engineer. She always motivated me to become an engineer. So before I
Okay.
bought your course, I actually got the Prep FE or
Prep
PPI,
FE.
one of those two. The one
Okay.
that's yeah, it's like $60 for 3 months or something like that. And
Okay.
I actually never ended up using that. Like I paid for it, but I
Interesting.
never used it, which is strange. Make yourself a good schedule is what I would say. um, be organized. I had different notebooks for different practice exams that I would take.
Mm,
The second half was a lot harder. That's when I was like, "Whoa, this is hard." I flagged 20 20 plus problems, 20 to 25 problems.
yeah.
Um, and it was a lot more conceptual than I thought. So
Okay.
first half, okay. Second half, kind of took a hit on my confidence. It just gives me more opportunities to say, hey, people, for one, people look at you and say, hey, he's serious, he or she is serious about
Yeah.
the discipline, the profession, engineering. So that's great, and, you get more opportunities.
Mahad, so you graduated in 2019 from UC Davis. Now, what kind of students were you in college?
In college, I would say I was really motivated, um, dedicated. I took the community college route my first 2.5 years. Um, I knew I wanted to be an engineer. My sister always motivated me. My older sister, she's a civil engineer. She always motivated me to become an engineer. But I would say I was a dedicated student. I started off taking very basic pre-algebra because I wasn't good at math in high school. So I had no choice but to be a motivated student.
That's awesome. And so, why did you decide to take your FE exam?
Well, I always knew that eventually I wanted to become a licensed engineer. The FE is the first step to getting that license. Um, I took it a couple weeks before I graduated UC Davis, so and I didn't pass it. I didn't think much of it, because finals was around the corner. Like, okay,
Mm,
I'll take it later, and um, then COVID hit in 2020, so all the testing centers were closed. Um, then I switched to subcontracting, a mechanical subcontractor, so I didn't do much design work there, and there weren't PEs that I was working with, so got laid off of that job. So that was a big motivator. Went back into design and, surrounded by PEs and EITs at the firm. They all encouraged me to take it. They didn't pressure me, which is a great thing. They kind of just said, go at your own pace, but make sure you get it done. So um, really took that grace that my company gave me to work on it and ended up getting it.
awesome. Okay, so basically, you took it twice. So the first time you took it before college, did you study for it for the first time, or were you just like, I'm just gonna go take it and just see what happens?
I didn't study. I think I crammed 3 or 4 days before,
Okay.
um, which is not a great idea. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, I didn't study much, and it was much harder than I expected. I thought it was just going to be
Oh.
very basic. That's what a lot of people were saying because a lot of people did pass it while they were, still in school.
Mm-hmm.
And, they were like, oh, I just studied 2 days, 4 days, 5 days. And I wasn't like that. I needed more time to get stuff. But since my finals were around the corner, I just said, hey, it can't be that bad if they're saying it's pretty easy. But it was a nightmare.
It's a nightmare. That's funny. I do remember that as well. Like a similar experience where in college, my senior year, everybody like was taking it. I remember some people failed, but I also remember some people going, "Oh yeah, just study. Like I just,
Mhm.
study the week," and they'll be walking around with the Linderbook book. the yellow one. And I remember like them just, going to the library with it and stuff like that. And then they would pass. And I remember also like some of those classmates, they weren't like A students, like I remember this guy specifically, he was barely getting by. I used to help him with his homework. He used to get like C's, maybe B sometimes, and then he passed. And I was actually really shocked that he passed. So then in my mind, I'm like, well, I should probably, just take it. And then, but I couldn't do that. Like, I couldn't just, I was the kind of student who like, I had to study for everything.
Right.
So I
Yeah, no,
just,
definitely. I get
yeah,
that. I get that. And like you
yeah,
said, there's some people who, they're not the greatest students.
yeah,
They don't sit in front of the class and they take
right.
it the first and they pass it the first time. You're like, whoa, how.
Yeah,
So yeah, I get it.
yeah, yeah. I think some people are just naturally good at taking tests,
Hmm.
so like,
A lot of
especially
it is
multiple
anxiety.
choice. Sorry, go ahead.
A lot of it is anxiety too. Like in,
Yeah.
testing, a lot of people are good. They understand the subject matter, the concepts, but it's the testing anxiety that really throws them off. So.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, okay, so then the second time comes around, so you got laid off and then you got another job, and that kind of encouraged you to take it. Now, did you right away get our courses, or did you try to study on your own for it?
I actually started with the Lindenberg book, the,
Okay.
the yellow one. I had a classmate who, when he passed it in college, he gave me that book. So it was all torn apart. It's so old, that book. So I started with that book, and then I think I got up to the static session, and I was like, this is way too hard, you know?
Mm,
So that's when I started like YouTubing, and I seen Mark Madsen. I think there's
okay.
another gentleman by the name of Coach James. And
Okay.
then I came across your videos, and your videos were short, concise. They got straight to the point. There was no confusion, and they seemed to, to be more on the lines of what the FE would actually be like, rather than, listening to a 2 hour lecture. Um, which is great, but with the time crunch that I was on, I needed something more concise.
Got you. Okay. And then is that when you decided to get our courses?
Yes, yeah. So
Okay.
I actually got your course. I started studying for the FE 3.5 months roughly. So so March, mid February to March, all the way up to June, to my June 25th, my FE exam date. I started studying, and I think around April or May is when I got your course. When I was like, okay, I really need to
Okay.
really, understand these second half topics, because those were the ones I was really, really struggling with. And I got your course and it worked. So
Awesome.
it was a great course.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll talk more about our courses in a minute. I do want to ask though, did you consider any other courses before you went ahead and got Genie Prep?
Yes. So before I
Okay.
bought your course, I actually got the Prep FE or
Prep
PPI,
FE.
one of those two. The one
Okay.
that's, yeah, it's like $60 for 3 months or something like that. And I
Okay.
actually never ended up using that. Like I paid for it, but I
Interesting.
never used it, which is strange. Because I think around the same time I ended up getting the Dr. Islam book, both of the books, the two practice exams and the
Mm-hmm.
800 problems and Giram. So those ones I felt like were giving me plenty of information
Mm,
to study for, and that's why I kind of just forgot about the Prep FE. I forget if it's Prep FE or PPI. So one of those two. I got those. I've never used them.
I see. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Now you enrolled in our courses. How did it help you, or what were some of the things that you really liked about our courses and you felt like really helped you pass your FE exam?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the first two videos that you do, where it just goes over the concept, um, and then you get into the actual problems, I think that
Mm,
helped me a lot. So, it was short enough where you can, keep, um, you can still be attentive to it, hold your attention. It's not a super long 2 hour lecture that you're trying to sit through. You're trying to fast forward sometimes. So it was short, concise. It gave me a good background. You kind of listed out all the formulas before you started solving the problems and the concepts as well. Because I heard from Reddit and from other folks on different blogs that the test would be more conceptual. So going through those concepts was actually really, really helpful um, for the FE exam.
Okay, awesome. And can you tell us a little bit about your study tips that you found helpful?
Yes. So study tips, I would say don't overdo it. Like I only studied 4 days out the week. I try to give myself a break. Um,
Mm.
Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. Um, Not only because I had to go into the office, but also because driving to work, driving back. By the time I make it, it's late. It's like 8, 9 p.m. I'm already tired. I'm not going to retain any information at that point. So um, make yourself a good schedule is what I would say. Um, be organized. I had different notebooks for different practice exams that I would take,
Mm.
and I would tab each one of the practice exams, and if it's like a lateral earth pressure problem or um, bending shear diagrams, like I would tab that so I could quickly go back and forth to those specific problems. So that's one thing I would do. And take as much time as you can, especially if you're working. Take as much time on Fridays and the weekends to study, because those are probably the only times that you're gonna have the most time to study. So that would be my advice and study tips.
Do you remember how many hours did you study per week on average?
Yes, so I work from home Tuesdays and Fridays,
Okay.
so I tried to utilize those 2 days during the work week and spend about 2 to 3 hours. So my lunch breaks, I could spend an hour. And then since I worked a little bit longer, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, my go to the office days, I could spend a little bit more time, maybe get off at around 5:35 and then start studying another hour. So 2 to 3 hours during the week, and then weekends probably like 6 to 8 hours. So
Mm.
that's when I really spent a lot of time.
Okay. So it's that's like about 18, 20 hours a week,
Right, 16,
roughly.
16 to 25-ish hours a
Yeah.
week,
Okay.
18 to 25. Yep.
Okay. And you did that for 3 months and a half.
Hmm.
Okay. And you passed your
Three and a
FE.
half months. Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Let me ask you this. Did you feel like college and classes that you took in university helped you with the FE, or did you feel like you didn't remember much of those concepts?
For certain subjects, it did. The
Okay.
subjects that I liked, so water resources, hydraulics, fluid mechanics, environmental engineering, all those subjects I really enjoyed. For structural analysis, mechanics and materials, geotech, I didn't even take a geotechnical course in college.
Oh,
So
wow.
that one I had to learn all from scratch. Um, Structural analysis, I always had difficulty with steel design, concrete, and I think the UC system at California got rid of surveying for their civil course or their civil engineering
Oh.
programs. So we didn't even take any surveying. It wasn't even an elective option. So that was probably the hardest subject for me, it was the hardest subject because you had all the
Mm,
angles, you have the azimuth confused me. Like it was very confusing.
yeah.
But I would say half and half, it helped out.
Okay. Now, with the subject that you struggled with after going through our courses, did you enjoy any of them, or did you start to like any of the subjects?
I actually started to like steel design and
Okay.
concrete design a lot.
Okay.
Um, you know, just trying to figure out if this, how many stirrups do you need, or
Yeah.
how many what do you call those things again? Those little bars, number
The
8 bars?
rebars. Yeah.
Yeah, the rebars.
Yeah.
How much rebar does this require? What
Mhm.
they'll give you like a concrete section with different rebar types, and they'll say which is the best rebar to choose. Like that,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed steel design and concrete after watching the videos. I always felt a little bit intimidated by it because the problems were so long, and I remember a steel design course that I took in college, and it was the steel design manual. It was this really big
Yeah.
book, and it was the most formulas I've ever seen in my life, and I was always intimidated by it. But after going through the videos and you explaining it, I started to enjoy it.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I think it's really fun. Like structures, like once you understand it, it becomes really fun because it's very close to like the real world, like what we do like in engineering and stuff. And so you can easily see how it's being applied. And that's just like I find it very fun to to do. But yeah,
Yeah, they're building. Go ahead.
good. You can
They're
yeah.
building
Hmm.
they're building like a lot of like bridges near where I live at,
Okay.
and like I always start to think of the influence diagrams now, like
Yeah.
how the influence diagrams are gonna work and stuff. So it's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I was gonna say, like a lot of our students, I've noticed they struggle at first with structures. We just actually, I interviewed Andre, and he got his PE recently as well. You probably watched it, and he
I seen
talked
that.
about
Yeah,
that. He was talking about like how like even the PE statics was so important, and he took PE construction, and he was like statics was like everywhere, and structures was also one of the subjects that he struggled with originally, and then he started to really enjoy it. So that's why I asked. I was wondering if you experienced something similar to that. um but yeah.
definitely.
Okay, all right, awesome. So let's see. So we talked about your schedule. You did it in 3 months and a half. You took our courses. Was there any other study resources that you used besides our courses? Did you take any practice exams?
Yes, I use the two Dr. Prashad Islam books.
Mm-hmm.
So the two practice exams and the 800 solved problems from Dr. Rashad. And also Giram, I did his two practice exams, one, and Lindenberg, I only used really for math and statistics. And then everything other than that, it was just a little bit too difficult for me.
Mm,
Um, and the official NCES practice exam.
mm.
So I used those 3 or 4.
Okay. And then when you say like the Linder book difficult, like is it difficult to get through the problems or is it difficult to understand? Like what exactly you struggled with? Because I think a lot of students either want to use it or they used it and they probably feel the same way. So I just want to like clarify that a little bit.
Yeah, it was definitely the problems. The length of the problems, the explanations were
Mm,
pretty vague sometimes. Like
okay.
they'll go through, it'll be this really long problem. You know, it's really long, but they won't explain the important steps that they took to get to that answer. Um, Whereas, if I'm watching your videos, and even Dr. Islam's book did a good job of going step by step by step, um,
Okay.
which is something that I really needed being out of school for 4 years, and not seeing this material for that long. Is you need to go back to the basics sometimes, and have someone or some book walk you through, right? So
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna actually, my next question was gonna be, how did you find the 800 Islam book? Because we do recommend it to our students as well, along with the practice exam. If they want that extra problems, I think, sometimes I usually tell students, hey, like if you getting enough practice from our course, you don't necessarily, because it's a heavy book, it's 800 poems, right? So that could be overwhelming. I try not to overwhelm you guys with so much material, but you did mention that you got that book before you got our course. um So do you recommend it to students? Did you find it helpful? Did you get that extra problems from it?
Absolutely, I would absolutely recommend that book. One of the things that's really good about that book is um, the first few pages, I would say 2 to 3 pages, they'll just go through all the formulas,
Mm.
all the concepts, and then you'll go to the problems. And then underneath the problems, they'll give you the answers. So what I tried to do, since I didn't want to look up the problems, I'd get like a little white sheet and I'd put it over the solution, and I would not move it, until I found an answer. So um, that book is really, really helpful.
That's awesome. Okay, great. Let's see. Was there anything else that you used along with our courses that our courses provided that you found like helpful, like Discord or the AI bot, or maybe any team member helped you to this process?
Yeah, Pranitha helped me a lot. I asked her a couple questions about the Giram book. I found a few mistakes
Oh
as I
yeah.
was going through,
Mm-hmm.
and I emailed Pranitha, and I also emailed Dr. Giram, and
Oh, yeah.
he actually responded too,
Oh,
which
that's
is really
awesome.
cool. So Pranitha gave me a whole list of, she would give me the whole background of the problem I was asking,
Okay.
um, and yeah, I did that for a few problems actually, and she was quick with it too. She was really quick.
Awesome. Really glad to hear that. Okay, so let me see here. Now, can you share some tips with us that kept your motivation levels high?
Yes, I would say tell tell your family. I mean, I told my mom, I told my siblings, I was like, "Hey, I'm taking this exam. This is the date, and don't get mad at me if I don't, answer the phone at a certain time." But they actually ended up motivating me because they would call me, right before I studied, and they would say, "Hey, Mahad, are you good? Are you studying today?" And they're like, "Okay, get back to work. Let's not get too distracted because sometimes I'm on the phone with my siblings and we're taking a little bit too much time." So, tell your loved ones, if you have coworkers that are EITs or PEs, pick their brain and kind of see like what they did, what their habits are. Um, Surround yourself with, obviously, if you work with them, you're going to be surrounded by them. So I think that rubs off on you. You get motivated by seeing other successful people and surrounded by other successful people. So that was a big thing. Telling them like, "Hey, I'm going to take it," and they're like, "Okay, this is what you need to do. This is what you need." People will naturally just want to help you out. So um, that's my tips.
Okay, awesome. Um, so the how was your exam? Let's talk a little bit about the actual exam. So you went in, how did you find your exam? Was it a nightmare like the first one? Was it slightly easier?
It
How did you find it?
it wasn't. It wasn't a nightmare like the first one. I
Okay.
actually sat down and felt like, okay, I can answer these problems. Granted, the first problem I ended up flagging, and it was a really easy problem looking back at it, but I ended up flagging it just because I was getting the jitters.
Yeah.
And the next one, able to answer it, and then I started to get into a rhythm. I started flagging about ten problems in the first half, but
Mm.
I was able to go back and actually answer them too, which is great.
Oh,
And
wow.
I took a little over 2.5 hours. I would say 2 hours 45, 2 hours 50 minutes for the first half. And I was
Okay.
like, okay, I'm okay. I felt a little bit drained.
Yeah.
I brought lunch, but I ended up not even eating it. It was just in the locker. I
Mm.
was just like, okay, I got to get back as soon as possible. I took my break. My break was like 10 minutes, and
Hmm.
I rushed back. The second half was a lot harder. That's when I was like, "Whoa, this is hard." I flagged 20, 20 plus problems, 20 to 25 problems,
Yeah.
um, and it was a lot more conceptual than I thought. So
Okay.
first half okay, second half kind of took a hit on my confidence, to be honest.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So did you after that, were you thinking like I'm not gonna pass this exam? Were you surprised when you found out you passed?
Yes, I was surprised. So I was preparing. I know I should stay positive, but I was preparing for the worst. I was like, okay, probably failed it. I'll just get back to it the month after. Take a month break, get back to it. And I started just going through all your videos again. I started watching them again and trying to see what they said. Like, did they feel the same way? I started going on Reddit, subreddits, threads and stuff, and trying to see how people felt. I was like, how did you feel? I would type in, how did you feel when you passed the FE exam? Or after you took the FE exam, Reddit. And I'll just go through just go down a whole rabbit hole with that. And I was doing that all the way up until like I found out on Wednesday, the following Wednesday. Um, and the fact that I took my exam on Tuesday and had to wait another
Yeah.
8 days was excruciating. So it was definitely a stressful time, but I'm happy I got through it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm really happy for you as well. Now, you did flag 20 questions in the afternoon. Did you go back to those? Were you able to get some of them?
Yeah, I would say I was able to make educated guesses on about 10 to 12,
Okay.
and then the other ones I just straight up guessed. I think I hit C for them, for all of them.
Oh, wow.
Um, so about 10, 12 questions, I guess. 10 questions, I was able to go back and work my way through it. Um, Granted, I mean, I still thought that there was a possibility I didn't get those problems and I was able to answer. I was like, okay, it could be 50-50 as well. But yeah, that that was I guess my strategy. Um, Choose the same letter for the ones you don't know and just kind of do your best, try to eliminate things and make educated guesses for the ones you kind of know.
Yeah. Now, the questions that you found difficult in the afternoon, were there practical problems or conceptual?
Conceptual problems.
Conceptual. Gotcha.
Yeah, it was conceptual, drag and drop orders, you know,
Mm,
those were really difficult. Um, and your videos really helped with that. Some of them was like, okay, like I remember this concept from mechanics and materials or, from the steel design section. Some of them I don't know. I don't even think they taught it at school. It might be something that you learn on the field that you
yeah.
just don't know unless you work it, right? So um, the conceptual ones were really, really, really difficult for me.
Yeah, I had a student who works in the transportation field, and he took the FE exam and he got a conceptual question on the transportation section. And he was reading
Hmm.
this and he's like, I've only heard this once in my work field, and like, and then he was thinking like, if I didn't work, in the transportation, how would I even hear about this or know about this? So it's very interesting because like you're never gonna find an engineer who has experience in all of the civil engineering fields like transportation, construction, structures. You usually find one,
Exactly,
maybe two, and then yet they do these conceptual questions where it's like, very, very small percentage of students are gonna get it. Yeah, so it's
exactly,
interesting. But I think the very important thing to keep in mind is to stay positive, and to just try not to let that affect you during the exam and just kind of get through the exam. And just also, we got to remind ourselves that we're not there to get every single question right. We're just there to pass it. So you already did really well in the morning. You're just trying to get as many correct questions in the afternoon, and then you're pretty much set. So and this is why it's important to not skip any subjects either, because you don't know which subjects you're gonna get is gonna be difficult. So either even
exactly.
the one that you're good at, you might get really difficult questions and you might not be able to answer it. So this is why it's kind of important to cover as many subjects as you can from the specifications. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, and they could throw stuff at you where they would say the problem in the specs. It'll say there's only 4 to 6 problems for this. But it could be
Mm,
they add even more, like it could be you weren't anticipating them to throw so many surveying questions on there.
mm,
And then as soon as you get to the exam, there might be more surveying questions than you anticipated. So it's definitely important to go through all the subjects and make sure you can solve 90%, 80 to 90% of the problems. Just make sure you know where to start at least, right?
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so you passed your FE. How did you feel when you found out that you passed? What were your thoughts at the moment?
I felt really good. I felt really good. I called my mom uh first, I called her and she was happy. My siblings, my sister who motivated me for all those years to even get into engineering, she was really happy and excited. Um, you know, I was really happy, and then at the same time, I, I had deadlines, so I couldn't really fully enjoy it because I had to get back to work. Um,
Yeah.
but I think I got the results July. I got them July 3rd because I remember the next day it was 4th of July. I was off, and I just took a road trip
Oh,
um, to Galveston. Went to the parade out there, 4th of July parade, and just enjoyed myself. And then the next day I was back to work. So
yeah. Awesome. That's great. Um, how did passing the FE affected your life?
I would say that it gives me more opportunities to move up, in my company so far. I really like where I'm at right now, what I do. And one of the criteria is to become an engineer too, project lead, and kind of open you up to that more project lead management type um, skill set that you really need in engineering is EIT, that EIT certification. I'm still waiting for the Texas Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors to officially approve me to become an EIT. So I'm still going through that process. It takes up to 8 weeks,
Yeah.
but my coworkers are all really happy. I feel like it just gives me more opportunities to say, hey, people look at you and say, hey, he's serious, he or she is serious about
Yeah.
the discipline, the profession, engineering. So that's great, and you get more opportunities, um, more doors open up.
Yeah. That's true. And then also I think also helps a little bit your confidence as well. You're like, did you feel like more confident at work and like when you're doing tasks and stuff? Is that
I wouldn't say I felt more confident because I was already in an environment that encouraged me to
mm,
go out and talk to clients and you know interface with architects and be that person to talk even without the EIT. Um, which is what I really love about my company is doesn't matter if you have the EIT or not. You're working in engineering. You're an engineer. Go out, and do stuff, right? They'll push you regardless of if you have those credentials. And to be honest, there's so many people without that PE title and the EIT title that are great engineers. Some of
yeah.
the smartest people that I know are not PEs or EITs, and they know everything about a system inside and out. So I wouldn't say it affected my confidence. I would just say it made me realize like, hey, you can do whatever you set your mind to. You
Mm,
can, you can learn a subject from scratch, not being in school for 4 years, being out of school for 4 years. Like you can do it, and you could still, if anything, what it taught me is that I can manage my time more wisely. Like it helped me manage my time. I could go to work full time and I can study. That what can I what can I not do except for probably work out because I neglected that a lot.
yeah.
During those 3.5 months, I didn't work out at all. I was just locked in the house. So that's the only negative is not. some people could balance it, but I couldn't, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, a lot of times what I try to recommend to you guys, and I don't know if you ever attended our webinars, but it's really looking at your schedule and then thinking about what's my priority right now, what can I do, right? And then what can I move for later? And then you just try to make that work. And this is why I really recommend getting at least on-demand courses, because it allows for you to have that flexibility. When you have a live class and you have to attend those classes, it's hard because, like you said, you get off work at like 8. By the time you get home, it's like 8 or 9. Imagine sitting to a 2 hour, 3 hour lecture. You're not gonna grasp anything after that. So this is why, yeah, it's just like you have. And it's another thing too, it's like what works for you might not work for someone else, and that's because everybody's schedule is different. Your productivity is different. How you feel productive is different for someone else, and so you just gotta like adjust as you go through this journey, and then kind of figure out what's works for you. That's really it, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So what's next for you, Mahad? Are you going to take your PE soon?
So I was gonna ask you, um, what so I am in the mechanical field right now. So I studied civil engineering. I switched to HVAC engineering.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
I do want to get my PE license. However, I'm struggling to find the resources needed um, to study for that mechanical PE. So I was actually going to ask you. Yes, I do want to. I do want to take the mechanical PE eventually. That's the next
Okay.
step, but not immediately. Probably in a year or so.
Okay.
Um, and what are some of the resources, I guess, that mechanical HVAC and refrigeration specifically? What are some good resources out there? Because I haven't been able to find any lifetime courses anywhere for the PE exam, and I don't know how I'm going to follow that live course schedule and 6 to 12 month access, because I think it's going to take
Yeah.
about 9 to 12 months to study for my PE, which I'm
Mm.
probably going to start November, December. Um, start studying for it and probably take it the following next August or September, I'm hoping.
Okay. So for you, why it could be a challenge, it's just because you're going from civil to mechanical. Your degree was civil engineering. You took the FE civil, so you don't have that foundation already. So you to move to mechanical. Finding a lifetime course, it's very, very difficult. I don't think, before I say that, I think there might be one course that offers lifetime access. He has a course on Thinkific. I would share with you the link after this, and then I would also put the link below this video in case students want to check it out. But he has PE courses. Check if he has lifetime access. If he does have lifetime access, go ahead and get it. And he has a great course. It's a little bit like us Genie Prep. He's not big. He hasn't, like, if you look him, it's not gonna show up on the Google page the first, like PPI, School of PE, their ads show up, because they can afford that, right? So
Mhm.
it's something you really gonna have to look it up. I've had a student who told me that he took that course and it helped him with his PE. Now, if he doesn't have lifetime access, or even if he does, I would recommend trying to maybe get some of the foundation, because like this guy might cover what's on the PE and not necessarily, you know, diving into the concept, you know what I mean? So I think if you've taken the FE mechanical, it would have been easier for you to do this step. This is why I always ask students like which PE you're planning to take, and then from there you can decide which FE. Although I still think you did the right decisions, because you did go to school for civil engineering, and I think taking the FE civil just made it easier and faster for you. But now the PE might take you longer. It's just, you know what I mean? So
Definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
so
Yeah, I
there's
was kind of
just,
thinking.
yeah.
I was thinking of getting your mechanical FE second half course actually, just to get the foundations.
Yeah.
Because it has thermo. I mean, I took thermo, but it's been so long. Heat transfer should have heat transfer in there too,
Yes.
right? psychometrics. I've seen a psychometric table somewhere in
Yes.
that FE
Mm-hmm.
handbook. So
Yeah.
all those are basics that translates over to the HVAC PE. So I was thinking, just purchase your course and use that first, to
Yeah.
just kind of develop that foundation and then transition over to an official PE course.
Yeah, I think I think that could work. I was thinking about it too, but I didn't want to mention it either because I didn't want to seem like I'm going to push out courses, if that makes sense. So, but you could do that, and this is why it's really cool how our courses are set up. There's the morning and the afternoon, so you don't need to take the full bundle. You can just take the afternoon course specifically for the mechanical, right? The
Hmm.
morning you already have access to it because there's some overlap there with the civil. um, so you would just need the half of the course, but that could be also a good route for you, taking that course, getting that foundation first. You are used to already our teaching style and our whole support. There's also Pranita can always help you with that. There's the AI bot. So there's a lot of things that you can use, and then once you feel, and then what I would recommend, maybe spend 2 to 3 months on that course, and then you can go ahead and then get a PE course for that. That could actually be useful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna start with that.
Okay, awesome. Okay, great. Okay, so Mahad, I have one more question for you. If a student comes up to you and asks you to list 3 things that really helped you pass your FE exam, what would you say to them?
It's a great question. One, give yourself time. Don't cram things. If it takes 6 months, let it take 6 months.
Yeah.
If it takes 3 months, let it take 3 months. Um, Pace yourself. Don't rush through things. So number one would be give yourself time. Number two is stay in touch with your family because this could be a long, long journey. And you might family and friends, I'll include those two. So stay in touch with your family and friends because it's going to take this is a lot of time. You're sacrificing a lot of time to accomplish this goal. So you want to, you want that support system around you so that could keep you going. For me, it was talking to my mom before and talking to my sisters before, my brothers, and getting that motivation. So that's number two. Number three, I would say Genie Prep. No, I'm just kidding. Genie Prep for sure. But buy that course. Seriously, buy a course. Um, it, know your style of learning. So for me, I was a visual learner. Your courses work really well for me. So know your learning style, um, and do your research on what books you should purchase for practice exams. For me, Reddit was really helpful. Those threads, I would go through those threads. I would read everybody's
Mhm.
feedback thoroughly and make mental notes of it. This is what they did. This is how many hours they spent. And obviously watching your interviews also help too. So listen to other people who have been through the journey and you know um, find a course that works for you.
Okay, awesome. All right. Well, Mahad, thank you so much for doing this interview with us and sharing your story. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I'm really proud of you. It's amazing how you did it in 3 months and a half, passing your FE exam, and yeah, thank you so much for doing this with us today.
Thank you, Kenza. Honor speaking to you.
Mm,
Really appreciate it.
thank you.